So, okay, participants, today we will discuss unit number 3, that is socket programming or client server programming. So basically we are discussing client server model. How does a client program reacts or interacts with the application program on the server basically. So in sense basically what happens basically, two application programs are there. One is running on the client machine or the local machine. Another program is there which is running on the server machine. So these two programs are communicating with each other. The client program simply sends the request to the server program and the server application program sends the response. So this model basically is known as client server model. So whenever you are going to write a program for this kind of situation, there are certain questions which arises in our mind, and these questions are written over here. The question is like that, should both the applications be able to request services and provide services, or should they just do one or the other? I mean to say that these two programs are there. One program is requesting for a service and other program is providing that service. The program which is requesting for the service will be known as the client program, and the program which will be providing the service will be known as the server program. Another question arises over here: should server serve only one specific program or many programs? So another question arises while we are doing some programming effort over here, that the server program should serve only one specific program, or it should allow more than one program simultaneously. Similarly, when should application program be running? Another question is that these two programs should be running all the time or finitely, or it should be running for a finite period of time. So these are the questions which comes into our mind while we are designing the client server programs or applications. I hope these notes are there. I have uploaded it on the university website at my home page, so you can go over there and download it. Fine, so it is already there. Unit number 3, socket programming. So one is client. Client runs on local machine requesting services from server. A client opens the communication channel using the IP address of the remote host and well-known port address of the specific server program running on that machine program. Server program provides services to the client. When it starts, it opens the door for incoming requests. So that is the definition of these two programs, client program and server program. Yes, Tejveer Sharma, do you have any problem? Tejveer Sharma? Tejveer. So another thing is there which is known as concurrency. Concurrency means whether these programs will be running simultaneously or it will be running one by one. Please confirm, are you getting me properly, or do you have any audio problem? Please fix up the problem at your end. So one is concurrency. In client, iterative clients, there are two types of process: iterative process and the concurrent process. What happens in case of iterative client? Client runs on the client run one by one. That is, one program is there, it sends the request to the server, gets the response, and then terminates back. While in concurrent client, two or more clients program can run at the same time. So if programs are running one by one, then it will be known as iterative client. If simultaneously running, then it will be known as concurrent clients. Next is server. What happens in case of server? There are two types of server: iterative server, and they process only one request at a time. Means they receive the request from the client, process their request, and sends back the response to the client. So this happens in case of iterative server. They process, I mean to say that they process the request or one by one, while the concurrent servers can process many requests simultaneously at a time. The server uses either UDP or TCP port. As you know that the server may be having a connection oriented service, or they use connection less service. Connection less service is being provided by UDP, while the connection oriented services are being provided by TCP. The server operations therefore depend on two factors: transport layer protocol and service method. Transport layer, there are two transport layer protocol, UDP and TCP, while service method is concurrent or iterative. So depending on these two things, there are four combinations. So theoretically, we have four types of server. One may be connectionless iterative server, another may be connectionless concurrent server. Next is so there are connectionless iterative server and connection oriented concurrent server. So there are four types of combination over here. Out of these, we will discuss two types for your convenience: a connectionless iterative server, and one will discuss connection oriented concurrent type of server. So you see here, connectionless iterative server. So we are talking about UDP. Connectionless iterative server uses UDP port and processes one request at a time. So if you can see this figure, you see here on the left hand side, these are the client programs. So maybe one client, two client, three client, and more than one clients are there. So they are the client programs. And on the right hand side, you are seeing the server. So there is one server which is providing services to many clients. But in this type of program, that is a connectionless iterative server, provides services one by one. So what happens basically, say for example, a request from one client arrives in the UDP port, it will be there, it will be processed, and the answer or the response will be sent back to the client, and then the next request from the client will be entertained. If in the meantime, while the server is processing request number one, another request arrives, that arrived request will be put on queue. So all the requests which are arriving at the time the server is processing the previous request will be kept in queue. So here they are kept in queue, and from here the server will process one by one. So this happens in case of connectionless iterative client. While in connection oriented concurrent server, the server can provide services to simultaneous clients, many clients simultaneously. The server that uses TCP are normally concurrent, and server may provide services to many clients at the same time. How does it happen? Basically, you see here. So the mechanism of providing services to the client in case of connection oriented concurrent server is being shown over here. Just to make sure, please confirm me, are you getting, anybody can unmute his mic and respond. Are you getting me properly?
Yes, sir.
Fine. Okay. So next is connection oriented concurrent server. What happens basically, the server that uses TCP are normally concurrent. Server may provide services to many clients at the same time. How does it happen? Basically, you see here the process. On the left hand side, client program is there that is running on TCP because they are connection oriented. So the TCP will communicate with the TCP on the other side. So TCP on the client side interacts with the TCP on the server side. You see here, there are two servers, parent server. What happens basically, if any client wants to get a service from the server, it requests to the well-known port of the server, well-known port used for connection establishment. So the first requesting client establishes a connection with a well-known port of the parent server. The moment a connection is established, the parent server spawns another server. Spawns another server means it generates another server, which is just a copy of the parent server. I mean to say, whatever features or whatever facility the parent server can provide, child server can also provide that facility. And once the child server is created, the request of the incoming clients are handed over to the child server, and this child server provides the services to the client, and the parent server port is available for entertaining other requests to arrive. I mean to say that the moment parent server gets any request from the client server, it spawns a child server and hands over the request of the client to this child server. This child server is equally capable of providing all sort of service which the parent server is, and this child server starts giving services to the client, and once the service is completed, that child server dies out or terminates automatically. So this is how basically the parent server remains always available for the incoming requests from different clients. So say for example, client number 1 is being served by child server number 1. In the meantime, a request arrives at the parent server. Again, the parent server spawns another child server and hands over the request of the client number 2 to the child server number 2, and the child server number 2 will provide services to client number 2. Similarly, in the meantime, a request arrives from client number 3. The parent server will again spawn or generate or create another child server. We can call it child server number 3, and hands over the request of the client number 3 to child server number 3. The child server number 3 will provide all sort of services to the client number 3, and once the services are fulfilled or completed or provided, that child server terminates or dies out. So this is the mechanism of providing concurrent services to the clients. Next concept is here socket. In this programming, hello, जी प्लीज बोलिए. अभी एक मीटिंग में हूँ, 1 घंटे के बाद. So next is socket. The communication structure, that socket is just for the analogy, you understand the sockets which are available on your home appliances or at home. Electric sockets are there, switches are there, some plug points are there. So similarly, what happens in case of socket, basically you take the services of electricity using that socket. Beyond the socket or behind the socket there is electricity services, and on the front end there are appliances which wants to use the service of electricity. So how to use the service? There should be some interface, and that interface is in terms of plug points or switches. They are known as electric sockets. So similar to that, we have communication socket. If you want to use, say for example, a program is there, server program is there, or client program is there, and we want to communicate with that. So you will have to create a socket, and you will have to attach the socket with this client program or server program. And using this socket, you can communicate with the client program or socket program. So I will discuss in the next slide what are these things basically. But here is the communication structure that we need in socket programming is a socket. So using the socket, we can communicate with application programs, maybe client program or maybe server program. A socket, as I have told you, acts as an endpoint. Two processes need a socket at each end to communicate with each other. So I am already telling you that, say for example, here you see application program is there and server program is there. So two programs are there. So we need two sockets attached to each end. One will be attached to the application end, client server end, and other will be on the server end. So two sockets are there, and these two sockets are communicating with each other. In effect, you can say that these two programs are communicating with each other. So that is the meaning of a socket. So a socket is basically defined in the operating system as a structure. You see here, this is the structure of the socket. There are terms family, type, protocol, local socket address, and remote socket address. Family defines the protocol group, whether it is using IPv4 or IPv6 or Unix protocol, whatever. So that is, and for each we have a number basically. It is using IPv4, then a number 2 is there. Similarly, it is IPv6, then there is a number. Say for example, 3 is there. So here is the number basically. Next is type. Type defines the socket. There are three kinds of socket: stream socket, packet socket, and raw socket. Stream socket is used for the TCP. If two TCP are communicating with each other, TCP at the client end is communicating with the TCP at the server end, then we will use stream socket. Similarly, if UDP at client end is communicating with UDP at the server end, then we use packet socket. And I have already told you that sometime ICMP is a program which is on the IP level, and sometimes it's directly communicating with the application program. So these ICMP communicate with the application program using a raw socket. So there are basically three types of socket. So here the type defines, the second parameter, that is type, defines which kind of socket you are using. For every kind there is a number. Similarly, third parameter is protocol. So protocol defines whether it is TCP or UDP. Protocol means transport level protocol used. It is set 0 for TCP and 1 for UDP. Similarly, local address. Local address means address of the client side. Local address. Address is a combination of local IP address and port number. Both the things in combination will be known as local address. IP address of the local machine means client machine, as well as the port number on which that program is running. Similarly, remote socket address means the server address. So server's IP address and the port number on which that particular service is running. So IP address taken together with port number is known as address here. So local address, and so these are basically the structure. A structure, I am talking about C. In the C, you might have read the structure. Certain things are there. So sockets are very much similar to these structures, and these are the members: family, type, protocol, local address, and remote address. Hope you might have got it. I have already told you that there are three types of socket. Stream socket is used for TCP. You see here, datagram sockets uses UDP, while ICMP and other programs like OSPF, they directly communicate from IP layer to program layer, and they use raw socket. Next is client connectionless iterative server. I have already told you that I will discuss two things: connectionless iterative servers and connection oriented concurrent server. So you see here, how does the connectionless iterative server works? So you see here on the client side, left hand side the client side, right hand side is the server side. So what is written over here? So first of all, create a client. On the client side, I am reading: create a client, repeat, send request. The request will be sent to the server end, and receive response. Whatever response will be sent by the server, that will be received, and the process will continue till the operation is completed. Once the client is satisfied, they come out and the process, or they destroy the socket. Socket is destroyed. Socket is destroyed means there is no way of communicating communication between client and server. So whenever you start, or whenever you want to start a communication, first step you see here, you will have to create a socket, and that socket will be attached to the client program. Similarly, on the server side, if you can see, server side you see here, create a socket. Again, a socket will be created, and that will be bind to the server. So bind to the server, and then repeat the process. What are the repeat? Receive request when it arrives. So whenever a request arrives from the client, it receives it, process the request, and whatever response is there, that is sent back to the server. And this goes on infinitely. On the server side, you may notice that it is not terminating. Server keeps on running for infinite time. Fine? Because just like a shop is always open 24/7, you can say. A client or the customer may arrive at any time at its convenience. So customers are very much similar to the client request. So you see here on the client, repeat as needed. So whenever required, the client will send a request. That request will be received by the server. It will be processed, and the response will be sent back to the client. So just I hope that you might have got this flow chart, that how does the connectionless iterative server works. You see here, the moment a client wants to send a request, it sends the request to the server. The server receives the request when it arrives, it processes it, and then whatever response in there, that response is sent back to the client. Client receives the response. If it is satisfied, then it destroys the circuit, means the application programs or the client server request has been served, the purpose has been served, and it will die out. But the server program will keep on running. So this happens in case of connection-based iterative server. Now come to see here, connection-oriented concurrent server. How does it work? Connection-oriented concurrent server. You see here on the client side, you see, create a socket. We are talking about connection-oriented. So the TCP will have to connect to get any service. The TCP at the client side will have to connect themselves with the TCP on the server side. So you see here, next is connect to the server, and then repeat as needed. Write bytes. Write bytes means whatever request you want to send, that is known as write here in case of connection oriented, and whatever request or response is sent by the server, they are read, or they are read by the client, that is known as read byte over here. So write bytes means sending the request, read means getting the response or reading the response on the client side. Similarly, come to the server side, you see here, first of all, create a socket, bind the socket with the server program, and listen for a client. Listen for a client means keep on waiting for client request to come. So you have opened the SOP, just like the server has opened the SOP for the service, and the customer or the client may arrive at any time. That is known as listen for a client. Listen for a client means the server is active and all the time waiting for the client request to arrive. So that is known as listen for a client. So you see here, create a socket, bind the socket, and listen. The moment a request from client arrives for a connection establishment, what happens basically? The parent server creates a child server program. The moment a client request arrives, the server program creates or responds a child server, and that child server provides the service to this requesting client. So the child server is there. So create a temporary socket for this child server, repeat as needed. Read bytes means whatever request is coming from that, the child server will read it, will process it, and whatever response is there, that will be written back. Written back means sent back. So the client program will read it. So this is how, and once the service is completed, the client socket will be destroyed as well as the child socket will be destroyed. For child server, we have seen that we have created a temporary socket. So once the service has been provided to the client, that child server socket program will be terminated, or you can say that it will be destroyed. Once it is destroyed, means that child server is no longer existing for communication. It cannot come. For communication, it is necessary that they should have a socket. So socket has been created temporarily, and once the service has been fulfilled, that temporary socket which was attached to the child server program is destroyed. So this is how these two connectionless oriented concurrent server works over here. The next thing which we would like to discuss, that before the concept of socket came, initially we used to do network programming, but with the help of Unix input output paradigms. So what are Unix input output paradigm? We will discuss over here. So how does basically Unix, I am going to discuss Unix because it has a similarity with the socket programming. That's why I am discussing. It will help you to understand the things easily. So application program interacts with operating system by making system calls. Unix input output primitive follow a paradigm which is known as open, read, write, and close paradigm. Open means whenever you want to read or write or perform read-write operation, you will have to open the device or the file. The files are known as device in Unix system basically. So to specify file or device to be used and obtain permission. So once the file is open for read and write, you will have to get permission also. If you have the permission on that device, then only you can read and write. Next operation is read. Read means transferring the data from device to user process. Read means I am transferring data from keyboard to application program. That is known as read. Write means transfer of data from user process to the file. Write means whatever output is generated by the program, that is written to the printer, that is sent to the printer, that may be sent to a file to save, that is known as write. Write means sending the data from user process or program to the file. And once the read write operation is completed, another thing is that close. So close informs the operating system that IO operation has been completed and the file is closed. Both here you can see the read and write takes three arguments: file descriptor, the address of a buffer, and the number of bytes to transfer. Those who have done pointers programming in C and they remember file handling in C, they might be aware with, or they might be familiar with these descriptors. So a star, FP, if you remember this kind of thing. So both read and write takes three arguments. So I have already told you that those who are familiar with the pointer programming or file handling in C might be aware with these descriptors. So file descriptor is there. Second is the address of the buffer and the number of bytes to transfer. Early implementation of TCP/IP under Unix also used the same paradigm: open, read, write, and close paradigm with a specific file name that was there /DAV/TCP. So earlier implementation of TCP, I have already told you that they were using the Unix paradigm that we have discussed, which is known as open, read, write, and close paradigm. But later on, as the interaction between user process and network are more complex than conventional IO facility, and due to the following reason, and hence we had to move to socket programming. Unix programming was not capable enough of handling these kind of complex requests. So what are the complexity due to which we have to shift from Unix paradigm to socket programming that are listed over here? You see here, protocol interface must allow programmers to create both server code that awaits connection passively as well as client code that forms connection actively. This kind of facility was not available in TCP. Awaits for connection, server awaits for connection passively, means all the time server is ready and it is in the listen state, means waiting for the client request to arrive, while client codes that form connection actively. Client code means whenever the program wants any service, say for example we want to use the services of Google, so here we are the actively and we write on google.com. So we are creating the request actively. So this kind of facility was not available there. Application program sending datagrams may wish to specify the destination address along with each datagram instead of binding destination at the time they call open. What happens in case of Unix? Unix always provides you the connection-oriented service. Connection-oriented service. Connection-oriented service means just you imagine just like a pipe. Both the ends are connected via two ends of a pipe. So whatever you are putting in this pipe, that will be received on that end, on the next end of the pipe. So IO paradigm is always connection oriented. But we know basically that in case of socket programming or in case of client server program, sometime we need to send the data in the connection-less manner also. So this was not possible in Unix. Further, complexity arises in the Unix protocol interface because designers attempted to build a general mechanism to accommodate many protocols like IPX, TCP/IP. We know that the different machines are there in the world and they are using different kind of protocols, and to accommodate all types of protocol was not possible in the Unix domain. And that's why we needed socket abstraction. What is socket? I have already discussed with you. So the basis for network input-output operation. What happens in the network basically? Some data is transmitted to other end and the other end responds. So data transmission between two ends are there. That's basically input-output operation is there. So the basis for network input-output operation centers on the abstraction which is known as socket. What is socket? I have already discussed you. So these are the socket. Next is how to create socket. Now the question arises as a programmer, how to create a socket. It is very easy to create a socket. The library functions are there. So simply you have to call these library functions, or you can call it system calls. Similarly, you will call it and they provide the certain arguments, so the parameters, and they will do the job on your part. So the socket system call creates socket on demand. So whenever you are interested to create a socket at the client end or at the server end, you will have to call which socket, which system program or which system call. Name is socket. So you just see here the next time socket is there. Socket with three parameters or arguments. One argument is protocol family PF, another is type, and third is known as protocol. So you will have to pass on three arguments with this socket call, and a socket will be created, and for the created socket a descriptor will be returned to you. Descriptor means any integer, maybe 10, 20, 30 or whatever it may be. So say for the example, I am using this socket PF, type and protocol. So before I go to the operation, I am just describing you what are the arguments basically. So PF argument specify the protocol family to be used with the socket. It protocol family means different protocol families have different kinds of addressing mechanism. If you are using TCP/IP, 32-bit address is there. If you are using PUP, Xerox Corporation, they have 64-bit of address. So you will have to tell the socket that what kind of protocol family you are using, so that accordingly it will interpret the address field and IP address. So the first one is the PF. So current family includes TCP/IP family, and they are known as PF_INET. So at the type of PF, we will write PF_INET. Means the socket will understand that we are using TCP/IP. Similarly, if you write down PF_PUP, then the socket will understand that you are using Xerox Corporation PUP Internet Protocol. Similarly, if you are using AppleTalk Network Protocol, then you will have to write PF_AppleTalk. And if you are using Unix system, then you can write PF_Unix. So accordingly the addresses will be handled over here. So PF_INET, PF_Unix are symbolic name. I am telling you that for these we have the number basically, specific values are there. For PF_INET it may be 10, for PF_Unix it may be 20, like that. So we will put here the numbers. These are the symbolic name. Next is type. The argument type specifies the type of communication desired. Means Will it be a SOC stream, means socket reliable stream, or it will be a datagram stream? Then we will use SOC DGRM. And if it is a raw stream, then we will use SOCK_RAW, raw. So the type will define the type of communication. So it will be a reliable stream, then we will write SOC stream. If it is connectionless datagram, then we will write SOC DGRM. Similarly, you can write SOC raw if raw stream is being used. And third is protocol. So sometimes protocol accommodates multiple protocol within a family. Say for example, a single protocol family may have 2 connectionless datagram service. Then which one will be there? So you will have to specify that over here. So 3 protocols are there. Say for example, you provide the 3 protocols appropriately, arguments appropriately, then the socket will be created and a number will be returned. And that may be 10, 20, 30, whatever integer number is there. And that integer number is stored in the result, which you can use later on for referring this socket. So this is how the socket is created. Next is socket inheritance. If you remember, the child server I have told you. In case of connection oriented concurrent server, what happens basically, the moment a request arrives at the server, a child server program is spawned or created, which has all the features or all the capabilities of the parent server. And this child server provides actual service to the client, and the main server program, that is known as parent server, keeps on waiting for other requests to come from the client. So we are talking about inheritance. Inheritance means the moment you create a child server, the child server inherits all the properties or facilities of the parent server. So that is written over here. And for that, we know that 2 Unix commands are there. Those who are familiar with Unix, they might be knowing that one command is known as fork and another command is known as exec, execution command is there. So these 2 commands are there. Using these 2 commands, you can create the child server. And the moment the child server is created, that child server has access to all the open sockets with the parent server. So that is there. You go through it and you will find how to create this server. Once the communication is over, means you find that the client program has been serviced and now the socket needs to be closed. So as a programmer, you will not keep the created socket open for all the time. If it is open for all the time, it will create problems for the system. So once the service is over, service is completed, you should close the socket. It is just like the habit that once you have finished reading the book, you close the book. If you will keep the book closed, somebody may come over here and sometime it may have the tea is poured down on the book will be spoiled. So this kind of thing happen. Similarly, this kind of thing may happen over here if you keep the sockets open all the time. So any other program may misuse these sockets and they can hack your system or anything may happen like that. So for that, basically, you will have to close. So how to close the socket? So there is simple system call is there. Close with one parameter. What is the socket number, socket descriptor? So I had told you that whenever you create a socket, a descriptor is written. Say for example, it is 10. So simply close 10. That socket will be closed. Socket number 10 will be closed. Or simply you can write down close result. If you remember, I have kept that number and result variable. Here, result. You see here, result. So close result. That 10 or 20, whatever number was written, that is stored over here. So that socket will be closed. So this is how you can create a socket and how you can close the socket. Next is specifying a local address. How you can provide local address. So initially a socket is created without any association to the local or destination address. I have already told you that whenever you create a socket, that socket will be bind or attached to a program, maybe client program or maybe server program. So for TCP/IP protocol, this means no local port number has been assigned and no destination port of IP address has been specified. Means if you are creating a socket and it is not binded, or you are not binding it to a program, means it has not been provided any address. If you bind it, means you have provided it the local address over here or destination address over here that you have to serve this application program. In many cases, application program do not care about the local address they use and are willing to allow the protocol software to choose one for them. So this happens in case of client programs basically. In case of client program, the moment you create a socket, the operating system automatically binds it to the client program. But in case of server process that operate at well-known port, must be able to specify that port to the system. Once a socket has been created, a server uses the bind system call to establish a local address for it. So the moment you create a socket at the server end, you will have to bind it. How to bind it? So I am writing it over here. So bind, this is the system call. System call is known as bind. Bind, and then socket. It is the number of the socket, which socket you want to bind with the. So socket, local address, with which program, with local address, with local port you want to address. So local address is there and address length is there. So there are three parameters or three arguments with the bind. So we are discussing how to specify local address to a created socket so that the socket gets attached with the server program or the client server program. So three arguments are there. Argument number one is socket. So socket is the integer descriptor. I have already told you. In the previous case, I am calling it 10. It may be 10, 11, 20, whatever integer is there. So whenever you create the socket, a socket number or descriptor is returned. So that number is given over here. So this socket I want to bind. Local address is a structure I have already told you. Specify the local address to which the socket should be bound. This socket should be bound to a local address. Local address is a structure. What kind of a structure is there? I am just going to show you below that. And next is address length. Address length is an integer that specify the length of the address in bytes. You see here, this is a structure of the address, local address. So a structure of the address is as given below and generally called as SOCK ADDR. So we have a symbolic name for the local address, SOCK ADDR, SOCK address. So you see here, this is the structure. 0 to 31 means 32 bytes are there. First 16 bytes we write down the address family, whether it is TCP/IP or whether it is PUP, whether it is Xerox, whether it is Apple Talk. So whatever family is there, we have discussed the family previously. So we have to mention accordingly rest of the bytes are interpreted. And next is address bytes. So address byte 0 to 1, octet, I mean to say octet, these are the octet. So 2 octets are there, 4 octets there, 2 to 5, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4 octets are there, 6, 7, 8, 9, 4 octets are there. And similarly, if you say for example, if you have the TCP/IP as the address family, you see here address family, TCP/IP. And for TCP/IP, we have number 2. I have already told you TCP, PUP, Xerox, these are the symbolic name. For each of these, we have a number. So for TCP/IP, we have 2. So address family is 2. 2 means it is 2 means it is what? 2 means it is TCP/IP. So we may have TCP/IP. Another thing is protocol port. So what is that? Protocol port. So port number is there. So I have already told you the address is a combination of two things, port number and IP address. So protocol port is there and then IP address is there. So protocol port and IP address. Similarly, if it is PUP, then other octets will be used because they have the longer IP addresses. So this is how the created socket is specified a local address, or you can say how it is bind to the program. Next, connecting socket to destination address. So once the socket has been created, say for the example at the client end, how will you connect it to the destination end? Destination end means how will connect this socket to the socket at the server's end. And for that we have a simple system call which is known as connect. So the system call connect binds a permanent destination to a socket, placing it in the connected state for reliable stream. Obviously, for reliable stream or for socket delivery, we have the connection oriented service. They use the reliable string. So connect and then the socket. Here you will have to write down the destination address and the address length to which we want to connect it. So the semantic of the connect depends on the underlying protocol. So this is how the connect means 3 parameters are there, 3 arguments are there. Socket, you are very much aware. Destination address is very much similar to the local address. So it will be a combination of port address plus IP address of the destination program with which you want to connect it. Similarly, next is the address length. Address length means in byte. So maybe 8 byte, 32 byte, 48 byte, whatever it is. So that is written. Once you have created the sockets and we have seen how they can interconnect with each other, there are the operations which are known as sending data, how to send the data to the socket and how to receive the data. So first we will see how to send data through sockets. So there are 5 possible operating system calls for transmitting data. I need to for sending data from one place to another place, from one program to another program. I have already told you the data communication takes place via socket. So you can say from one socket to other socket, whatever you may call it. So sending data through sockets. There are 5 possible operating system calls for transmitting data. Number 1 is send. Next is write. Next is known as write V. So these are the options. Basically, you can use any of these system calls depending on your convenience and depending on your requirement. And next is send to, and another is send message. So these are basically 5 possible operating system calls which you can use for sending data. Send, write and write V are used for connected sockets. Connected socket means for reliable transmission. Reliable transmission means for stream socket. Stream socket means if 2 sockets are connected with each other, connection oriented facilities are there, then we can use send, write or write V. But if you are using connection less service, means these 2 sockets are not connected, means unconnected sockets are there and they want to communicate with each other. As I have told you in case of connection less iterative server example, we can use send to or send message. So these 2 system calls are there, send to and send message. Now we will see one by one the structure of these commands or system calls. First we will see the send. You see here the send. If you can see send, then socket, whatever message you want to send, length of the message, and then flag. Flag are the additional arguments which tell whether it is an urgent message or it requires some special facility like that. So socket specify the socket number which we are using. Message gives the address of the data to be sent, how much data, from where it should be taken out. Length specify number of bytes to be sent, how much byte is the data. And flag controls the transmission. It is out of bound, urgent, etc. So this kind of thing we can put it over here. If you are using send to, then you see here send to means socket, message, length, flag, and then you will have to provide the destination address. In send, no need for the destination address, because whatever you will send, it will reach on the other end because they are connected as a pipe. So destination address is here already understood because they are connected. Before performing send, they have been connected with each other. So here no need for the destination address. Whatever you will write or whatever you will send at this end, that will automatically go to the other end because they are connected pipes. But here in connection oriented, pipes are not there. They are not connected like pipes. So you will have to specify the destination address. That's why send to required 2 other arguments, just like what? Destination address and address length. Next is send message. Similarly, if you see your send to requires 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6 arguments over here. But send message is a crisp one. That is a compact one, and that is having only 3 arguments: sock, message structure and flag. Rest of the thing, that is the message length, destination address, and address length are embedded in the message structure. So that is crispy, and argument this is completely comparatively shorter to send to, but all these things are there. So here is the structure of the message. You see here all the things which were there in the send message, they are all sent to. They are also here. Point to sock address. Sock address means size of the sock address, IO vector list, access, and this and that. Now you see here write. So whatever you will write, what is the write? Write socket, buffer, and length. Socket descriptor, buffer is the address of the data to be sent. How much data you want to send, from where you want to send, and how much. So say for example, I am telling you the buffer number is 2100H, means I want to take data from 2100H, and length is 10 bytes. So I want to take data from 2100 to 2111. 2100 से हमने लेना शुरू किया, 10 बाइट हमें भेजना है, तो जाहिर सी बात है 2110 तक हम जाएंगे, 2110 तक जाएंगे. So that is the meaning of that. Buffer means 2100. Length means how much byte. So 10 bytes, 20 bytes. So 20 bytes is there, then it will be 2120. So this is the length of the bytes to be sent. Similarly, another. So this happens when what happens in write. Write means a buffer says 2100 and 10 bytes you are telling. So it will pick the data from 2100, 2101, 2102, 2103, 2104 up to 2110. Continuous addresses. So it will pick up data from continuous memory space. Sometimes it may happen that the data is scattered, not present in the continuous memory space. Some data is one space, another data is there some other buffer space, another data is there some other space. Then how we will send or write the data. So for that we have the solution that is known as write V. V means vector. So write V, socket is there. In place of buffer, you will have to write down IO vector and then vector length. IO vector will specify how much data you have to pick from which address. You see here the IO vector here. So pointer to block number 1, 32-bit address. Block number 1. So block number 1 address, say for example, block number 1 address is 2100 and length. So you have to pick 10 bytes. So it will pick 10 bytes from pointer number 1, that is 2100. Pointer to block number 2. Block number 2 we have to pick up from 3235. So say for example, address of that buffer is 3235H. So from 3235H we have to take, say for example, 5 bytes. So we will have to pick data from 3235, 3236, 3237, 3238 up to 3240. So this is how IO vector works. So IO vector or the write V allows you to pick up data from or to gather data from a scattered memory, while write allows you to pick up data from contiguous memory location. So this is how you can perform read, write, and send operations. So similar to that, you can receive it. For sending, we are using the send. So similarly, for receiving data through socket, we have another 5 set of system calls: read, read V, receive, just like send, which is receive from, and receive message. So read, read V, and receive, they are used with a connection oriented, while receive from and receive message, they are used with unconnected sockets. So this is very much similar to the above. Read, you see here, read, descriptor, buffer, and length. So read will receive data from contiguous memory location. But if we have to read data from uncontiguous memory location, a scattered memory location, then IO vector is there. So it will tell the program how much data you have to pick up from which address. So this is the things. Similar to that, we have other system calls. Next is there how a server accepts connection. I had told you once a socket has been established, the server needs to wait for a connection. All the time, the server is waiting for a connection. To do so, it uses system called accept. So the moment a request arrives, it accepts that connection. How does it happen? I am showing you over here. You see here how specifying a queue length for a server. So I have already told you that the server is always in the mode of listen mode. Listen mode, that is socket. So how it keeps on in listen? Socket and queue length. So how you can define the queue length? That if the request is coming from 5 clients, 6 clients, or 10 clients, 20 clients, 100 clients, that queue length can be defined over here. How a server accepts connection? I have already told you that it uses the system called accept. And what are the arguments it accept? Socket, ADDR, and ADDR length. When a request arrives to the server, the system fills in argument ADDR with the address of the client. The ADDR field is filled with the address of the client that has placed the request, and sets ADDR to the length of the address, and length of the address is over there. And then it creates a child server, and the child server handles the request of the client. So finally, the system creates a new socket that its destination connected to the requesting client, and returns new socket descriptor to the caller. The original socket still has a wildcard, and it keeps on waiting for another request to come. The moment another request arrives from a client number 2, it puts the client number 2's address in the ADDR field and address length over there, and creates the socket, new socket or child socket, and hands over the request to this child socket number 2. This child socket number or child server number 2 handles the request of the client 2, and the original server keeps on waiting for the another request to arrive. So this is how the things basically operate in this case. I have already told you that for client server model, if you want to consult any book and you have access, all these things are available on the internet basically. So go to the internet and you can find 3rd edition of the Forujan, and chapter number 4 deals with this basically. So whatever I am discussing, that is discussed in chapter number 24 of 3rd edition of Forujan. If you have 5th edition or 6th, it may be on chapter number 25 or chapter number 23. The chapter number may differ in different editions basically. Similarly, appendix number H of Forujan deals with the client server program. So client server programs are written over there. One client program is written there, another server program is written over there, and it has been shown how these programs interact with each other. So you can see these two programs from there. Similarly, if you are interested in reading some more book, the socket interface, chapter number 20, 3rd edition, Douglas E. Comer, D.E. Comer. Douglas E. Comer is there. Go to chapter number 20, and there you will find socket interface. So whatever I was discussing over here, that discussion was there from Douglas E. Comer. Similarly, another book is there which I have already recommended to you, that Internetworking with TCP/IP, Volume 1 by Richard Stevens. So these are the 4 books which you can consult for further reading. I have just scanned some pages from chapter number 20 of Douglas E. Comer, and I have shown you how the things are there. So here is the example of a client program and a server program written in C. This is a client program and server program. So it is very easy. You can see, and you can go through these program list over here, and you see. Say for example, I am just telling you something. How you see here, connect. You just see here how to create a socket, how to bind the socket. If you can see here how to bind a socket. If socket is created over here, then it will return a number. If it is not created due to any reason, some error message you can display. Similarly, bind. So for the bind operation is there. We have already seen the bind operation. If bind is successful, then it will return you a positive integer. If a positive integer is not returned, then something has gone wrong, and then you can display an error message over there. So these are the things basically. You can listen. You see here listen. I have discussed the structure of listen. You can go through it. So you will, whenever you will go through this program listing minutely, you can learn how to write a client program, and then next is example of server program. So first example is a client program here. This is the client program, and the purpose is written over here. Why we have written this client program. Similarly, the server program. this server program is providing service to this client program. So you can see the examples from this book. So similar examples are available on the internet also. You can go through these